Guys, it happened. It finally happened. In the 10th game, we can officially say,
the curse has been lifted.
Wow, guys. I'm so happy that you guys are with me today. As always, welcome to another beautiful episode of Shooting the Shit. I'm your host. As always, I'm Landsman. On the other end is my buddy Z. Well, what's happening?
Yo, Davey. Actually, two curses were broken. The overtime curse and the curse with that jersey you got on right there.
So it means good news. It means I don't have to toss it, right?
Broke double the curse.
I'm so relieved. If you guys are just joining us, the Montreal Canadiens played on Saturday night yet again, and yet again they went to overtime. Well, overtime special and shootouts. And for the 10th time this year, they did it. And, honestly, going into that game when I saw I was going to overtime, I screamed, oh, shit, not again. And I'm sure you felt the same way.
Yeah, I thought it was over. So one of my good friends is a Canucks fan. And when it went to OT, I said, congrats on the win. Before the OT started, he was like, come on. And I was like, well, that's just being a Habs fan, man. There's no faith in post-regulation wins anymore. They've gone 9. They were 0-9, right? So
yeah,
it was nice to see them come out with the W for once. And I actually thought they played well in the overtime.
Yeah, it was a bittersweet, But I gotta ask, let's go back a bit. Why are you friends with the Canucks fan? Let's shoot him out. Let's blast him.
I believe it or not, I have multiple non-Habs friends. I consider it a positive in that I get some much-needed perspective from other fan bases, and then I would like to provide my own perspective to them. But yeah, it's an interesting one. But this particular Canucks fan, he's a pretty level-headed hockey fan in general, I gotta say. So it's good conversations with him.
Okay, so we won't blast him too much. All right. Well, it's nice. It was nice. They had, like you said, they played 9 games going into overtime and shootouts, and they even played Friday night. Then it went to overtime, and they lost. So that was 9 in a row. They were closing in on. I don't know what the franchise record is, but they were getting up there. It was pretty bad. Those were 9 points that they lost out on, and that really essentially could have put them, as you tweeted out, tops of not just the division, but the league.
Yeah, I think, if you look at it at point percentage, because some teams have played substantially more games than others. The Canucks have played 4 more games than the Habs, just for example. And, my assumption is that all the games will be played this year. I know there's COVID and there's been postponed games, but 1, there's been no postponed games in the North Division. And 2, I'm assuming they're going to make up those games, and the COVID situation, is going to get better throughout the year, I hope. So, but at this point, there's still a gap in games played. So I typically will look at point percentage as standings. And yes, if the Habs were just merely at the time of the game, post-game Friday, I tweeted, if the Habs were merely 3-6 instead of 0-9, they would be, by point percentage, first in their division, ahead of the Leafs, ahead of the Oilers, and ahead of the Jets. And if they were good at post-regulation, and let's say they were 6-3 instead of 0-9, by point percentage, I believe they were second or third in the whole league. So yes, it's a good feat not to lose in regulation. It's a better feat to win in regulation, mind you, but it's leaving points on the board, getting these loser points, and going into 3-on-3. I know. Listen, we can talk about our feelings on the overtime system and whatnot later, but they're leaving points on the board. And yes, the Habs could be in first place in the North,
which is scary and crazy at the same time. But you know what? You have to give them credit. Last night they actually played a full game. There's times where there was like some gaps, like the first minute of the third period, and but like they really just, I don't know, they seemed the chemistry was there. On like all 4 lines, the defensive patterns was working. I liked it. Did you? I know you caught this. They reunited the top line that was so dominant last year, and that being the line of Brendan Gallagher, Thomas Tatar, and Philip Deneau.
Yeah, and we had talked about Deneau, who's been, better lately, but generally has been regarded as, we spoke about it a lot last episode or the episode before, where maybe it's the contract, maybe it's personal life. Yeah, he had a kid, blah blah blah. Kid's one, I think now, and listen, different factors. But I mean, we were just merely the contract. If it's true that he turned down a $30 million contract, he's probably, you said he was kicking himself. He's probably just crying in his bed every night because he's not getting that offer again, I think, at least. So, but as we both admit, the Habs need him. Like, Suzuki and Kotkaniemi are good players who might be very good players. I think they actually will both be very, very, very good centers. They're not yet. They're 20 years old. I think 21 and 20.
Yeah, exactly.
A bit of a sophomore slump this year. Kotkaniemi's rebounded from his sophomore slump, but he's still literally one of the youngest players in the NHL. So to have an expectation that these guys are going to carry some vital top two center role for the whole season is unrealistic. These aren't Sidney Crosby, right? This is not Connor McDavid. There aren't these type of prospects. They're prospects who will develop. Best case scenario, they'd be someone like Alexander Barkov or someone like that who took 2-3 years before he established himself as a star, right? That's best case. Maybe they don't get to that level. Maybe they just get to a level where they're very good centers who can put up 60, 65 points a year, which is still very good. But the point is that the Habs need Deneau. And I felt that Julien broke that trio up too early. I understood eventually why he did it, and I'm glad that Ducharme put them back together. They've played great since they've been reunited. Certainly, Gallagher seems to spark Deneau and Tatar, and he just plays well with them. And it was a good decision. It was a good decision to have those guys back together.
Yeah, and yesterday they contributed immensely. Gallagher had the tying goal. Tatar had a nice snipe from the slot. Deneau came up big with 2 assists. These were plays that needed to be done. But I'm totally with you, the fact that they, as much as maybe we're a little hard on Deneau and his offensive production in terms of the goal scoring, but he's not a goal scorer. We know that. We know he's more of the playmaking style. Maybe his numbers are not reflective of what they've been in years past, but he's still, someone who will log the big minutes. He will play where he's slotted, and he will make essentially his line mates better, which he showed last night.
That line is very important because what happens is, especially at home, you can throw that line out against the other team's top line. And because Deneau is a very good defensive center, and Gallagher and Tatar are responsible defensively, they're a tough line to play against. So even if you're the Austin Matthews line or the Connor McDavid line, they maintain possession. The Habs line does. And so you're going to be forced to at least play some chase, some defense, some recovery against them. And listen, they're nowhere near as skillful as a McDavid or a Matthews line. But the thing is that they can make that line work. They can make them work on the defensive side because they are a puck possession team and they're sound defensively. And so they're a very important line. And when you can throw that line out against the other team's best line, especially at home where you can match up, it puts Kotkaniemi and Suzuki's line in a situation where they can play against the other team's less competitive lines, let's say. And then they can maybe dominate. I think we saw it yesterday where Deneau's line, they were excellent 5-on-5. And Kotkaniemi, who was playing with Lehkonen and Armia, had some great shifts. Sucks that Toffoli's hurt. We'll touch on that. I'm not sure what's wrong with him. But it allowed Lehkonen to slot back into the lineup. And me, I'm maybe president of the Lehkonen fan club. I wanted to see him back in the lineup, not at the expense of Toffoli. I think he should be playing for Byron, is where I would slot him in. But I thought he played really well. One thing you're going to get out of Lehkonen is hard work. Yeah, maybe he doesn't have the speed of Byron or maybe some of the offensive upside of some of the other players, but he works. Other than Gallagher, I don't think there's a player on the Habs who works harder than Lehkonen. So it just when that line is going well, the Habs slot in better. And I thought, they dominated the game yesterday. I know there were, like you said, there were some parts, and I think Price probably had a couple of goals he wanted back. I don't think that game needed to go to overtime. I think the Habs played well enough to win it in regulation. They looked good, and now they got this 3-game, quote unquote playoff series again coming against the Oilers, who they're chasing. But I think they have games in hand on, so this could swing the Oilers Habs in one direction or another for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it definitely. I was going to touch about the Lehkonen line, but we pretty much addressed the fact that it was nice to have the finish line back together, and they do have this chemistry because obviously they know their system working well, and they each have their roles that they work well on. But yeah, no, like you said, they have 3 games this week, huge games, Monday, Wednesday, Friday against Edmonton, a team that they're only 5 points behind with 3 games in hand. These are games they really need to win. It's not like it's not do or die because we're not at the end of the season, but these are games that really could develop and give the answer of how the final, like the end of the season, like the postseason, will turn out. So the thing is that with Edmonton, we've had the inconsistency factor this year. With a lot of teams, which we have, aside from Vancouver, we've pretty much had up and down numbers with every team. But with Edmonton, it's like a team that in the beginning of the year, we played 2 games with them. We outscored them 8-2. And then afterwards, they were shutting us out. And it's really hard to play against 2 of the top players in the NHL, that being Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. 2 guys who play together exceptionally well when they're together and play exceptionally well when they're apart. They just know how to lead the team. Right now, as it stands, in the North Division, they lead by 9 goals. I know it's not much, but 9 goals by the top goals 4 in the division. What do you think the best solution is if they want to shut those 2 down?
Well, as you were talking, I think I was looking a little bit at the games they played with the Oilers, right? Because you're right, they won the first 2 games against them, then they got shut out. And ironically, in the game they won 5-1, they lost the sort of scoring chance battle, expected goals for battle. In that game, Koskinen was terrible, and Price was excellent, maybe his best game of the year, actually. And then subsequently, they won 3-1. The Habs played much better, and they deserved that win. And then in the 3-0 loss, again, the Habs played better. They had more possession, higher, quote unquote expected goals for. Again, this is at 5-on-5, right? I'm giving, and where a majority of the game is played. And the irony of the Habs and the Oilers is the Oilers are the top scoring team in the league, top 5-on-5 team in the league, right? Which typically we think of the Oilers as a power play team, right? This amazing power play you just mentioned, Draisaitl and Connor McDavid and Tyson Barrie is a power play specialist, and they got Nugent Hopkins, and they got guys that would scare the crap out of you on the power play. But they are the highest scoring team 5-on-5. The thing about the Oilers is, and why they've been winning recently, is Mike Smith came back from injury and has been playing lights out. I think he had a .920 save percentage. And it's important because I think they're the 5th worst team in the league 5-on-5 on defense. Expected goals for and actual goals for. They give up a ton. So the Oilers have to outscore you, right? If the Oilers aren't scoring, they lose. It's almost impossible for them to win a 1-0, 2-0 game. Obviously, they shut the Habs out 3-0, so it's not impossible. But odds are, if they can't get 2 or 3 goals, they're going to lose. Because of how well Mike Smith has been playing recently, they've been racking up W's. So the interesting thing in the game against the Habs will be who's going to win the 5-on-5 battles. And the Habs power play since Ducharme took over is running at 34%. So who's going to be the more disciplined team, right? Those are going to be the key factors. And obviously it's going to come down to goaltending.
Yeah, absolutely. In years past, Mike Smith's numbers have been on decline. Steadily since coming over to Edmonton, his numbers have not been superior. towards any other goalies in the league, even though he's got a wealth of experience. But now this year, it seems that, coming off the IR, replacing Mikko Koskinen as number one, and knowing that is his role as number one, he has, like you said, been lights out. Here, I'll pull up his stats just for fun.
Honestly, I don't think he's been good since leaving. I don't think he was good in Calgary. He hasn't been good for a few years. So this could just be a hot streak, and he's going to regress to his last few years' average, in which he wasn't good. Or maybe he made an adjustment and he turned the page. The great irony, by the way, is that his best year was under the tutelage of Sean Burke, who is now Carey Price's new goaltending coach.
Yep, there you go. I pulled up his numbers this year. He's 11-3 through 15 games started, and he's putting up his third best numbers of his career, and that's including his rookie year. So, last year with Edmonton, he played 37 games. He won 19. These are not numbers that you're like, oh my God, he's an all-star. I still remember when he got the goal in the all-star skills comp. Was it skills comp? Yeah. But, he's not a good goalie. But I guess this year is a little bit of a turning of a leaf for him. It's tough to say because their defensive team, like you said, is not very good. They have the top pairing. They have, Darnell Nurse and Tyson Barrie. And then after that, it just falls. That's probably why that they are so bad defensively.
Well, I'm just kind of looking at his analytics this year, and he's playing above his head a little bit. He's over his expected save percentage. There's going to be some regression. I'm not denying that he's playing great. He is. He's on a heater, and the Oilers are playing better. Connor McDavid is on a streak I think I read somewhere that he's on track to have more than 140 points in a 82 game season, which I think we talked about this last week. No one's done over 140 since the 90s.
Yeah, the last highest scoring point, the Art Ross winner of this decade, or even of 2010s, was Kucherov, and that was at 128. And then it was Thornton in 05-06. We got 125. But we have not seen numbers of 140 plus in over 20 years.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. I was watching the Jets-Oilers game, the beginning of it yesterday after the Habs game, and he scored a goal there where he just, he brought the puck in, he skated, he made the move, he skated behind the net, picked the puck up, skated parallel. He's just an unbelievable player. He's so fast. I think he can skate sideways faster than most people can skate straight ahead. He's just an unbelievable hockey player. I haven't seen anything like it. Here, I was talking to my friend about it this morning, and I was saying that when I watch him play, the only player in my lifetime that's elicited the same reaction out of me is Mario Lemieux. And they're different players. And I'm not suggesting that McDavid is at that level yet, or, Crosby wasn't a great player, or Gretzky wasn't a great player. I've seen them all play. But I'm just saying Lemieux used to make me just stand up and just be like, wow, over and over, more than any other player. And McDavid elicits the same reaction. So the Habs, don't get me wrong here, the Oilers are a good team, and the Habs are going to have their hands full. But I do think there's a blueprint to beat the Oilers, because if you shut down McDavid and Draisaitl to a certain degree, you win the game. The Oilers proved it. And he's been on a tear since I think he only put up 1 point in 3 games against the Oilers a few weeks ago. So, the Oilers, maybe it was a fluke. I don't know. Maybe he just had some bad sushi that week, and so he wasn't playing well. But you have to slow him down, and you have to slow him down. You have to try to slow him down, and if you
Good luck. He has been off the score sheet. I just checked 7 times this year, which is a lot. But at the same time, how many times has he put multiple points up on the score sheet all the time? He's got 2 5-point games under his belt this season.
Yeah, he's on a streak too right now, isn't he?
He's right. Okay, so
check his game log, because he's on a potentially a 10-game streak or close to it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's on a 9-game point streak.
Yeah.
And only 2 of those games did he get just 1 point. You know, like he right now has a 10-point lead in the points race right now. He has 60. The next one is 50. The shitty part for us is the 50 is his teammate Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's those two guys. I mean,
but it's not just the fact that, like, you know, he is kind of like Lemieux in the sense that, like, he doesn't just contribute on the assist column. He doesn't just do like one special area. For McDavid, he does it all. And like right now, he's not only just leading the league in points, he's leading the league in goals too. You know, like, well, co-leading, sorry, but like he really he's one of the flashiest players, and wow, he turns heads, and he's still turning heads. He's 24 and he's got a full career ahead of him.
And you know what's interesting about him this year? So analytically, the case against McDavid, there's no case against him, but the one sort of red, mark against his game is that he was traditionally bad defensively, gave up a ton of chances against. He's cleaned that up. This year, he's actually a positive defensive player. As I mentioned, the Oilers as a whole give up a ton of chances still, but it's not McDavid. It's not happening on McDavid's watch. And it could just be that he's like you just said, he's only 24. Like, he's not even like hockey players peak at like 24, 25. He's at his peak right now. So he can potentially get better between now and 26, right? Which is asinine. But he's just so dominant with the puck that you're chasing anyway. So, it's going to be a huge ask for the Habs. And I'm going to use this topic to parlay into talking about the Habs defense, because we've touched on the struggles of Shea Weber. We've touched on the fact that having Edmondson and Weber together, or even going back to Sherratt and Weber together, having those slow pairs, they struggle against speed. Well, there's no faster player in the league than McDavid. There's none. So
it's been proven. I mean, it's like you could put in contention Dylan Larkin for.
I'm asking you now. Mete, right? Victor Mete slotted in for Ouellet yesterday. He looked good. The kid can skate. He had a breakaway. He set up the first goal, I think, or it was the second goal, perhaps.
He set up the
second goal. Yeah, the second goal where he took it behind the net, and the kid's got wheels. He can skate. I understand he's got tons of issues defensively. He's not big. He gets pushed off the puck. His decision-making might be questionable. But if there's any defenseman on the Habs that you hope to keep up with a McDavid, just to have a body around, it's probably Victor Mete. So how do you see the defense being slotted in these 3 games with the Oilers? Because I think Weber and Edmondson would get lit up.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think they should go back, and I mentioned this in weeks past, but the chemistry that Weber and Mete showed last year and the year prior was some of the better hockey for Weber for his game. It always helps him, his motivation, because, you got the wealth of experience on the right side, you got the youngster on the left side, but Mete is growing into his game. He's starting to put himself together. He's showing the reason why he should be in the lineup. Unfortunately for the Habs, is you can't always dress 7 defensemen a night because he is the 7th D when it comes to that. But if I were Ducharme, I would say stick with the Weber and Mete because it works, and stick with the Petrie and Edmondson because it works. Those are pairings that have worked this year consistently. For Mete when he's in the lineup, that is, but like, it's worked. Look at the hustle that Mete put on that assist to Tatar's goal. It was on a delayed penalty. He could have just honestly, he could have just dropped the puck and said, "Okay, we'll take the power play, whatever." But no, he continued to play. He cycled it. He fought off the puck behind the net, which is not a spot where a defenseman usually finds himself. Found an open Tatar, and Tatar found a slot right behind Holtby, and boom, red light.
So I agree with what you're saying about Mete. I will say he's looked bad at times this year, but I think it's a difficult season because of, the schedule and the compressed games, not a lot of practices. And I think a guy who's in and out of the lineup, it's tough because you can't develop a rhythm. And, a guy like Mete, his whole game is predicated on speed and positioning. Like, he's not a physical guy. I mean, he's just not a big dude. At any point in his hockey career, from junior to playing in the AHL to the NHL, has he been a physical player? Those type of guys need reps. They need reps, and they need to develop a rhythm to their game just to know when to come up, and I think it's tough on a guy like that. And especially when you're paired, and he's been paired a lot with Kulak and Romanoff this year, right? And Kulak is a guy who is also an unsure player. He needs rhythm. He needs to know. Like, I think Kulak plays so well with Petrie because he's played with Petrie before. And him and Petrie, they know each other's sort of little, idiosyncrasies. Also, playing with Petrie is good for anybody. So, I think, and then playing with Romanoff, you're playing with a rookie. You're playing with a guy you haven't played with before. And again, you're not getting reps in practice, right? So I think it's been tough on Mete, but I would happen to agree with you. And I think based on last game, I don't think he's coming out of the lineup. But I would say, since the Habs are at home and they can control last change, if they're worried about a defensive zone face-off, just don't put Mete in. Now, if you're playing Mete with Weber, that's a problem, and I get it. So, maybe to your point, reunite Edmondson and Petrie, because that worked. Slide Kulak down, who you seem to have a bit more faith in. Play him with Weber, because I think we haven't moved off the fact that Weber needs a puck-moving defenseman. And then pair Mete and keep Mete and Romanoff together as your third pair. So Mete in the lineup, you can isolate him depending on where you start in the game, and you still have a puck mover and you play. My point is, you play Petrie and Edmondson as your first pair, right? Yeah. Against McDavid and those guys. So I think that would benefit. I think you need the speed in the lineup from the back end. I think the Habs need to push the pace. They need to score goals to win against the Oilers.
100%. I mean, the thing, I will agree to you also on the point of Mete needing to play more, because if you're one day put in, one day taken out, one day put in, one day, it really plays with your psyche, and it really gives you a shot to your confidence. It doesn't say oh, the coach believes in me. It means the coach is uncertain about me. They will definitely have to put up some offensive numbers. We can segue that for the final point about, hopefully we'll have Toffoli back in the lineup. I mean, he was a late scratch Saturday night to the game against Vancouver, which was a little bit of a worry because he's been the Canucks killer all year. But, they said lower body injury. They didn't give any specifics. Hopefully he'll come back. He's leading the team with 18 goals. He's tied for second in the league. I think
day to day, right?
Yes. Yeah, he's day to day with lower body. We don't know what's going on. We can hope
there is hope. There is hope that it's not serious. I think it's funny because I went back and watched highlights of the game, and I couldn't, and it's a highlight package that I watched. So maybe I missed something small during the game, but he had shifts in overtime even, and nothing. I watched the overtime and nothing happened. I don't know. I don't know if it's something he tweaked or perhaps it's something that's been bothering him all year and it just got to a point where he couldn't play anymore, which would be concerning if it's something chronic like that. But the hope is that whether or not he comes back, the Habs can weather it. I mean, we've heard about the Habs' depth all year, and Lehkonen came in and played well. But, Lehkonen, we just talked about, he's not going to score goals, especially not at that level. He will work hard, but, let's cross our fingers, hope Toffoli shows up. If Toffoli shows up, you're Dominic Ducharme right now. Who's in and out of the lineup if Toffoli's back in? Because Toffoli's not sitting. So is it you sit Lehkonen, you sit Byron, you bring Evans out and move Byron? Byron's played center, which I'm not crazy about. What do you do?
To be honest, I would take Evans or Byron out. I mean, they haven't really dazzled at all this year in terms of production-wise. They haven't really contributed. It's nice to know that, you can have the players like Evans and Byron both play penalty kill, but it's hard to say those two as opposed to when you have the contradiction of putting Lehkonen in. Lehkonen has been dominant against Edmonton. He had his pairing, his line mates, they work. Like we said, they work together well. When you put the finish line together, it works. Does it have to be those three on the third line? Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, You can't. I don't want to take out Corey Perry because he's been dominant for us this year.
You're not taking out Perry, man.
Exactly. He's been a really big bright spot since he's been entering the lineup consistently. So to summarize my answer, yeah, between Byron or Evans, take him out.
I don't know if you noticed yesterday. I think I texted you in the second period, and I was like, "You see, no adjustments, period to period." Because I was clearly frustrated. And I was talking about Deschamps because we've talked about how, even going back to Julien, one of my frustrations is that there's no adjustments period to period, which is not true. Deschamps has adjusted. Against the Jets, he put the O line back together in between periods, And one other thing is, yesterday I noticed in the third period, Evans didn't play at the end of the game. He was actually double shifting Kotkaniemi between Lehkonen and Armia and between Perry and Byron. So Evans didn't play the last few minutes. Obviously, he didn't play in overtime. So I could see a situation where they move Byron back to the quote-unquote 4C and leave Lehkonen in on the wing. I think he likes having Byron in the lineup because he likes having Byron on the penalty kill. Byron obviously is a breakaway threat because he's fast. He's a veteran. I think he trusts him on the penalty kill. And I think worst case scenario, he sees a chance where he can just either double shift a center down the stretch, just have Byron on the bench. I don't know if that's the right answer. My point is that I would not take Lehkonen out of the lineup.
Neither would I.
Basically, he's been struggling this year. I think defensively, especially against a team like Edmonton, you need guys who can play defense. Lehkonen is arguably one of your best defensive wingers. And you know what? He did play well offensively yesterday. So maybe something's clicking in his head. Maybe the healthy scratches have gotten to him, because he drew the first penalty, which Suzuki scored on, by to the net and creating some chances. He skated hard. He recovered pucks at the board. He set up Armia, I think, once with a very good scoring chance. He was all over the ice, and I think he played a good game. And if he plays like that, even if he's not scoring, it's an asset, because that is your third line. And if your third line is playing better than their third line, then you're giving yourself a chance to win. You're giving yourself a chance to win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one thing you would need is you would have to try and match as much as you can speed for speed. We'll end with the notes about Carey Price, because Carey Price has been, like you were talking about, Mike Smith being lights out lately. So is Carey Price. Carey Price is putting up numbers back to the Carey Price we're used to in terms of his strength, his good days. He has been, playing some of his best hockey as of late. We can pull up his stats lately, but
Well, I think I'm pulling up his stats now, but I think you're right. I think I read somewhere prior to last night's game that his save percentage in March is up near 95%, which is unsustainable.
Remarkable.
Which is great. He did not play well last night.
No. Yes, you're right. Last night was not his best, but there was a lot of questionable goals that went by him this past year.
I'm not sitting here saying oh my God, he let in 4 bad goals, because there's 2 things I want to mention about Carey Price. Is I think a couple of them were savable. They weren't easy saves by any stretch of the imagination. They were deflections. They were, shots by goal scorers like Brock Boeser, who, scores 30 goals a year. He's going to score on a power play off a one-timer, right? The odds are still in the goalie's favor, but that's a high percentage shot for a guy like Boeser. So, but the thing is, you pay Price $10.5 million because you want him to make 1 or 2 hard saves during the game. And he didn't make any last night until the overtime and the shootout, where he stood on his head. And he was probably, more so than Tatar finally scoring in the 6th round, he was the reason why the Habs earned that extra point, why they broke the curse as we started the show off.
Yeah.
Price was phenomenal in the shootout, just taking away net, taking away space, making guys miss, making big saves. And, Holtby was equal on the other side. Holtby had a throwback game. He hasn't been good. We made fun of him this year. He was good last night. The Habs could have won that game 7-1. If Price played well and Holtby played like Holtby. You know, like,
yeah, that's for sure. I mean, some
night.
of the goals were really like the Holglander tip right in front of the net. You're just like, he looked like a goalie from the early '90s. You know, when they were like hunched over, you know, and their shoulders were the top part of their, and that was it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was not his best game.
That was the Horvat one, right, where he kind of jumped up. He
No,
thought
it was a Holglander tip. It was a Holglander tip, wasn't it?
Oh, it was Hoglander? Okay, I thought it was Horvat, but it ended up dropping down.
Yeah.
I was like, why did he jump?
He looked like he reminded me like a Ron Hextall or Garth Snow kind of style from the '90s, and it was just like it's gonna be one of those games. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that game yesterday, I'm happy that we pulled out those 2 points. It was not his 2 best points that he's gotten all year, but prior to that is what I'm saying is like prior to that he'd been pretty much like aside from the game on Wednesday, he was not over 9-10, 9-15 every game, including just one game under that, which was 9-17, and the rest was 9-44, 9-58, 9-63, 9-66.
Right. He's been playing. Listen, he's clearly turned a corner in his season where he's playing well. The key is last night wasn't a good game. Whatever. It was not even it was they scored 4 goals I think on 16 shots. Like
18, yeah.
Not going to happen either, on a regular basis. So, but the key here, okay, they got this 3-game series against the Oilers. They got 6 points. The goalies, Price, I'm assuming, is going to get 2, and Allen will get 1. They need good performances every game. Otherwise, they'll have no chance. And you're going against the best offensive players in the league and the highest scoring team in the league. With a filthy dangerous power play. Just tons of threats on the ice in 2 players, right? So if Price and Allen don't play well, Habs lose.
Yeah. So now we'll end with that then. Okay, 3 games: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We agree. I mean, I'm agreeing with you that I think that Price will take 2 of the 3. You got to give some rest to him. How many points are going to come out?
Well, look, conceivably, because of the way they're spread out, let's just say Price is going to start on Monday, right? I think that's almost 100% sure. We can both agree he's getting the net on Monday. Let's say he plays great, he'll get the net on Wednesday. Let's say he plays great again, he'll get the net on Friday. So there is a scenario where Price plays all 3 games here. I don't think, because there's a game in between, I don't think Ducharme is going to pull Price if he's playing well. Now, if Price plays well in all 3, Habs get 6 points. 6 out of 6. If he's good in 2, bad in 1, then they get 4. If he's bad in 2, 1, they get 2. My point is that they're going to go the way the goaltending takes them here. And so I think, and I hope, there's going to be some regression in Mike Smith's game here. And I'm hoping with the Habs sort of finding a little bit of their, good 5-on-5 play. Now, I know they did it against the Canucks, which are a bad defensive team. But, the no line has given me some hope that they can at least put out that line against McDavid and maybe hopefully make him work a little bit. We are at home, so they get last change. Hopefully Ducharme plays the matchups. The Habs, they need 5 or 6 here to really swing the season back in their favor above the Oilers. If they get 4 out of 6, that's a good showing. But they also need to limit the Oilers, right? If you get 4 out of 6 and the Oilers get 4 out of 6, by picking up loser points and blah, 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 you don't want to end up even. You want to end up having gathered more points than the Oilers at the end of this. You have the 3, and so I didn't answer your question, did I?
Well, I mean, you went around it. You said your ideas. You gave the very obvious answers. If they win 3 games, they got 6 points. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, they're
going to win 2 out of 3.
Yeah,
okay. 2 out of 3. I don't know if they'll win outright because the Oilers, I believe you mentioned, before we got on air, had the most regulation wins, correct?
In the division, they had the most regulation wins with 21. They had the most goals in the entire NHL. I mean,
But
it's not going to be easy.
The Habs, for what it's worth, have the least regulation losses, right? Because they've gone to overtime 10 times. And the Oilers haven't gone to overtime that often. That's not something I want to do against the Oilers because you don't want to play 3-on-3 against McDavid and Draisaitl. So the Habs, I think, also need to win in regulation. So you know what? Law of averages, Habs are going to take 2 out of 3 in regulation, and I don't know about the third game. Maybe the Habs even pick up a point. Maybe the Habs go 5 out of 6. That's my prediction.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm really hopeful that you're right. It's going to be a real big test. Hopefully the Habs can put up the same offensive flair that we knew and we saw at the beginning of the year. That would be my hope, and I think your hope as well. So, hey, we'll find out, guys. 3 big games, 3 days, next week. Stay tuned. So on that note, guys, we're going to wrap it up. We want to thank you again for tuning in with us this lovely evening. You know what? I really appreciate you guys tuning in to us. We really appreciate the love, the support you guys have been giving us. And we're going to keep doing this. We saw some of your comments, and we're definitely going to address them in future episodes. So don't worry. We see you, and we acknowledge. So on that, I want to say that I am Landsman, and I thank you. He's Z.
Guys, good night. Let's hope McDavid, don't want him to have a serious injury, but if he gets the flu this week, that wouldn't be such a bad thing.
So on that note, I'm going to say on the ironic twist, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay awesome. Good night, guys.